and welcome to another episode of Anime Anticlimax, the show where we never start on time and we usually go several weeks late. 1 week this time, but we are always here. But any case, this is SeptumSin. Of course, I am joined with Brittany, Roger, and Jake, our usual crew, and I am glad to have you all here because we're covering a classic. And I'm going to hand the control of the show over to Brittany because this is her quarter. Actually, this is you starting the quarter because we ended it, and technically in June with Hare plus Goo, I believe, for mine. So it's now you're in charge of this quarter. So tell us. Oh, actually, don't tell us. Show us our Baccano.
Baccano is quite a unique anime as it takes place in America in the 1930s, the beginning of 1930s America, with immortals fighting mob wars, and has quite the unique cast, a very large cast, but a very unique cast.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the classics of anime, even though it's kind of disappearing because they're putting it away and making it harder to find the series, and I don't know why. Because this even aired on, I believe, on Adult Swim once.
Yeah. I found it pretty easily on my shelf. I can't find it anymore because someone's borrowing it.
You will get it back. I still need to get a copy, sadly.
Yeah. Baccano has become rare to get, just like was it Darker Than Black or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
It was another one that should never be out of stock, but it is.
Yeah, that's the one I missed the boat on.
Yeah,
Unfortunate. That's a tough step to get for anything reasonable in price these days.
Maybe
Baccano's
Discotheque will
come
bring
that
it.
way too.
well,
There's
unfortunately,
several sets too.
it's the same people behind Dora, and that has also been very hard to get stateside. They have, for some reason, just never felt we needed it. I don't know.
Yeah, as we move on more and more to the cloud, you're going to be finding that these shows are going to be disappearing to be replaced by, I don't know, it's fluffy stuff.
That's silly.
Yep, as streaming takes over, you're at the mercy of what they want to stream. So if they want a series to disappear,
It can be granted.
yep, it will be gone. Nobody
They
will
are
This series is initially 13 episodes with 3 added episodes since that kind of continued the story a little bit. It tells pretty much the fight going on a train called the Flying Pussy Willow.
Mm-hmm.
And we get introduced to a couple of characters through the story being told to us by someone trying to write the story after the events. And we get introduced with who they say should be the main character. But
Mm-hmm.
I think we all know who the real main characters are. But yes, they introduced us to Luck at the beginning, and also, what is it, Fier? I'm trying to see his name here appropriately, so I'm going through a long list here.
What's that?
I'm just going through a long list of characters trying to get the right names
Yeah.
here. Dallas will play a big important role throughout the story, but where? Fioro. So Fioro, being our young gentleman in the green olive drab suit and the front here of the image we have here. Being very
Firo.
sly and quick-handed member of one of the mob families. And he sort of, for most of the story happening on the train, he is never on the train. He is always in New York.
Right.
So
He's there at the station?
He's there at the station, and he is there in the year before, because we flip-flop between
Right.
different timelines. It goes between 1930, 1931, 1932, I'd like to say, and 1700s something.
There's also a couple that take place in the 20s, like just brief little backstory. Yeah.
But, well, the series tells us Fior's the main character. The clear main characters are Miria and Isaac, the thieves of happiness, as they're known. And, my God, this is why I wanted to put this on the series. They're probably the best couple in anime. And not as a romantic couple. They're just a great pair. I'd only say they get beaten by Jesse and James from Pokemon.
I've long thought it would be really fun to do like a video on like the best comedy teams. The other one that immediately comes to mind for me is Akio and Sanai Furukawa in Clannad. I just love them absolutely. But Isaac and Miria definitely give them a run for their money. They are a pair.
I mean, basically, their whole plot through the story is, at some point, I don't know if we remember what crime they committed that they want to make up for. But they turn around and they're like, we need to make a change. We need to commit crimes to make people happy. And they're good at it, but the crimes are absurd.
Yeah.
Like, they broke into a museum to make it open for the public by just stealing the front door.
Yeah.
Right. It's great. Well,
I
the opening,
remember they stole candy and just gave it out to everybody.
Well, yeah, the opening credits sequence shows them robbing a candy store, and there is an oblique reference to it later in the show. Like it seems to be like that was an actual hit they did. It's never actually shown in the show, but it's in that opening sequence. But yeah, I mean, one of the best is where they end up stealing the fortune of a rich man in order to save them from the trouble of dealing with the inheritance and the squabbling that goes with it.
They steal from the family, a mob family.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's great. It's great. They're
trying to see go back to Luck here, because it's Luck's family they steal from.
Well, they tried to steal from.
It's Dallas's family they steal
Yeah.
from.
It's the Genoard fortune. Yeah.
Yeah.
They try to steal from the Gandors and end up that's where they end up with the liquor bottle, or what they think are liquor bottles.
And they're actually essentially, this has a little bit of a touch of, the Devil's Deal, with the whole ordeal of the 1700s, where they're all on a ship. They're leaving from, it's like a mix of Italy and Paris between members. So it's kind of odd combination there, but it's everyone on board. In order to survive, they made a deal with the devil. And the devil basically said, okay, I will give the knowledge to one person, and that person will have the ability to make this immortality potion, and I will give you the immortality potion.
He gave the immortality potion to everybody on the ship. Well, offered it to.
Right.
Offered it to him.
Right.
And there was a catch.
Of course.
That if anybody wanted to die or to be killed, all they had to do was put their hand on top of another immortal and ask to be fed.
Mm-hmm.
And these immortals, 200 years, give or take, goes by, and they all disperse and do their own thing. And we get to meet them as individuals throughout the series. The most notable ones, I'm going to try and find them exactly here, is, where was PRA?
Actually, before we do too deep a dive into characters, should we do our impressions?
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, I'm blocked out on that. So, Jacob, first impressions since you were the first to talk there.
Okay, well, as I mentioned before, this is from the same people, essentially, that did Dura, and I've seen that, and I loved it. Absolutely, friggin' literally loved that show. And I've not been able to see in all the sequels because they're so dang hard to get here, but I've seen much of it. And so this one crossed my radar at some point as, oh, it's from the same people. And then the opening sequence crossed my radar too, and we'll get to that when we get to music, but it's one of the absolute best opening sequences in any show, I think. And so this has been on my to watch list for a long time. But unfortunately, it got on my radar after it went way out of print and became hard to find. And I have just never gotten around to getting a copy because the price and because it mostly got a DVD release here. Was there an official Blu-ray here?
There was an official Blu-ray release from Aniplex.
Okay.
It's going to be costing you a mint.
Yeah.
It would cost you a mint when it came out if it's
right.
Yeah, exactly. 250 smackers at least.
Yeah. Funimation handled the initial release, and that was affordable at first. But
had several versions of it with the Viridian and a regular set that came out. Yeah.
But at any rate, so it's been on my radar forever, and I've been wanting to see it. And also, I like stuff set in this time, and I'm intrigued by the novelty of an anime set, not only in Prohibition, but in America generally. I think, Brittany, you already mentioned that's an unusual thing. So
everybody still speaks Japanese.
And I did watch it first in English, but then, of course, I had to watch it in the original language. So I have now seen the show twice. I've seen it through in English and I've seen it through in Japanese. And I enjoy it. I enjoy it immensely. It has a lot of the same vibe to it that Dora does, but it also is a completely different setting. So there's a lot of differences and a lot that's the same. Like at one point I joked that the Daily Days, we first meet this character, Nicholas, and I joked that, what is this, Isaiah's grandpappy? I mean, I could definitely see Isaiah as an outgrowth of this organization. There's no two ways about it. But he's more sinister in his ends, I think, than these people were. The info brokers in this series were a little more helpful, let's say, than Isaiah. But overall, though, I feel like the show delivered what I expected, and that's a good thing. I did not really know about the whole immortal subplot really until right before I started watching it. So that was a different flavor than I had gone into it really thinking that would be there. But and there was a lot more comedy. I was not expecting Isaac and Miria to be one of the funniest comedy teams in any show. So, it was what I expected and not what I expected at the same time. I can say, having seen both language versions, that they did a really, really, really good job. I think with the English dub, not only making it enjoyable, but catching the essence of the characters. A couple of the performances were weaker than others, and that's true in both versions. But overall, it was good times. I'm glad I finally got to see it.
Good. Roger?
Well, this is not the first time I've seen Baccano. I've heard about the manga. I did collect it, and I went, I think, to one of my local, movie stops, and they had a copy, and of course I collected that, and of course I didn't watch it. It probably took me like 3 years later, something like that. But when I eventually decided to watch it, I was pleasantly surprised the amount of graphic violence as well as really great comedy. It's kind of one of the few animes that can do both very, very well in a flip of a coin. To tell you the truth. So when I was watching the show, I was really engaged with the plot, which I was very pleased about getting this particular assignment. I said was before that I have a lot of trouble trying to remember names and stuff like that. So this is my the most nightmare show I could possibly have watched. Because there's got to be at least like 25 people. There's got to be like something like crazy like that. Instead of we have a main hero and they got a heroine and maybe a couple more. It seems like throughout the story, the focus flips to several different points of view and everything is tangled up in the timelines. Ironically, the Isaac it still reminds me very strongly of the Vash the Stampede in a way. It kind of reminds me a lot about that. So this Baccano is simply a show that if you really enjoy gangster stuff, it is kind of unusual because this takes place in America, like everybody else says. I think it's like what is it, Chicago or New York or something like that. I forget what city it's in.
Chicago to New York.
New York.
Yeah,
it seems to be in New York anyway. So, but if you're looking for a very well done show, this is one of the ones you want to get. I said, like everybody else saying, it's unfortunate that it's Aniplex or Funimation just decided to let it drop. It's one of those kind of shows that it should never been released, kind of forgotten about. As we get more and more isekai shows and magical girl shows, which I do like those kind of shows, but this is like a slap in the face that makes you turn around, especially when you meet a character that you think is going to be completely harmless, that turns right around to be the most vicious monster you could possibly imagine in the whole show. For example, I'll not get too deep in the plot because I don't want to spoil anything. But this show, like I said, can change his attitudes in a quick spin of the dime, quite literally. And that's what I liked about it most. I could go on talking about it, but I tell you what, Imbria, I really enjoyed Baccano. So I really thank you for allowing me to watch the show after quite a bit of time. I haven't watched the show in several years. It just got distracted with all the other stuff. So I was watching this and say, yeah, I can really get into it really quick.
Glad to hear. 32 characters. 32 named characters that each have speaking roles.
32? My God.
32.
That'd be the biggest troop of characters that actually have something. Each character is actually doing something. All the characters have something to do in the whole show. Not like other anime. There's background characters that barely ever get talked about. I'm sorry, I'm going on about it, but man, in this show, actually every single character in this thing has something to do. So you have to remember all this stuff. I was just spinning around my chair trying to figure out which one. I ended up literally saving a list of characters so I can refer back and forth as I go through the show and talk about it.
Hey, Mike. Yeah. Actually, to that point, and Anthony. So we got a lot of folks here. Cool. One of the interesting things about the characters, and again about that opening, is like it gives you the freeze frame intros to all the characters, and you think it's like the main characters, but then this picture we have right here, we have a character right dead center, who it turns out to be a key character who is not introduced in that intro. He's shown, but not introduced.
Well, he's not even introduced until a little bit later in the series either.
Right.
Halfway through the series, yeah.
Well, he's introduced in bits. Like you see him, you know he's there, but it's a really great red herring that I'm sure we'll get to. But then on the other hand, the lady right behind him over his shoulder is introduced in that intro, and she was one of the less prevalent characters in the series. But like y'all said, though, you got a lot of characters who, even if they weren't prevalent, they still got to play their part, and it's pretty interesting to see.
Especially one that came out of nowhere was that what's his name? The wrench guy, the Graham Spector. Graham Spector, the guy that watched the.
He didn't even show up.
I would never look at a wrench ever the same again.
Well, that wasn't that technically like a sequel mini-series, those final episodes?
That was a way for them to write an end story for all the characters.
Right.
Yeah.
And he didn't even show up till that.
We kind of got like some characters just dropped the ball from the original 13. So they put a 3-episode where they introduced a few more characters, but it helped tell an end story to all the characters.
This is a pretty kind of rare thing to happen in a good anime, when they start from a beginning and they come to an end. It's not like there's going to be any more episodes after that.
Well, there is at least one major plot thread left dangling, but they actually acknowledge that in the final episode too. The whole, but I'm sure we'll get to it when we get to it. But the whole question of where stories should start and stop is where the show starts. Is those two discussing where they should start the story? They have a similar discussion at the end.
This anime was, like I said, at first 13 episodes. The light novel is the origin of the series, which is 22 episodes, but the manga is only 2 volumes.
Well, it definitely, I do like that a story has an end to it. Actually, I will go through with my first impression since I'm here. So this is not my first time watching it. I don't remember how I heard about it, but I know it was popular at the time. And I was like, oh, well, the DVD, I think it was on one of the Right Stuff Christmas sales, like one of the first ones that I had noticed. And I was like, oh, well, this is available on their Christmas sale. This is relatively cheap. I'm going to get the Brittany copy. I'm glad I did.
Happy for you too, buddy.
Indeed.
They're hard to get now. Especially that they took it off Crunchyroll, so you can't go to Crunchyroll and watch it. You're going to have to hope you can find something somewhere.
We may have found one site.
But even then, that's still not very mainstream. I don't know. It's kind of sad when you see something like this disappear. I didn't like it as much the second time around as I liked it the first time when I watched it, but I was really hyped on it the first time I watched it. I checked out a little bit in the middle of it, but otherwise, it's still an enjoyable series. I'm still glad I have it. And I still like some of the characters involved, especially our crime duo in the corner. They are still my favorite characters in that series.
Oh, by far.
But and oddly enough, I also kind of like insane killer guy from the Crime Family. Not the
Lad?
not the conductor one, but the one
Lad.
that's married.
Lad.
I think it's
Who-
Lad.
I
Ladd.
swear, for several years, I thought John DeMeo was doing Lad's voice. 'Cause I heard Bender out of that voice.
I think he and Bender will get along fine.
I don't usually like
absolutely.
kind of blatantly evil characters like that, but he's just so fucked up in the head that
Yes.
it just cycled over to, okay, no, I really like this guy instead.
Yeah,
That entire
he's a
family
brutish,
is pretty messed in the head.
Brutish piece of shit, gangster killer, psychotic killer.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah.
He's not the only one either, too. My God, man.
Almost everyone in this, well, I won't include Isaac and Miria, but pretty much every single character in this picture, with the exception of the bride, which is Lad's, we can say it now, I guess.
Well-
He brought her along to kill her. That's it.
Yeah.
And she's cool with that too, which is,
I think the bride, the lad's supposed bride, and the younger Dallas. I think his name is Dallas's sister, the Saint
Eve.
sister.
Eve.
I think everybody else are criminals of some way, somehow.
Yeah.
Some way, somehow, or killed, or
Immortals.
thieves, or man, it's,
Even the kid.
even the kid is absolutely brutal, a brutal killer.
Yeah.
At least he's not quite as sadistic as the other immortal little kid we've looked at
Oh,
in,
boy.
Yeah,
in the Rumiko Takahashi series.
Yeah, well, he's
Yeah.
that one.
The Mermaid Scar, that kid is
That's
psychotic.
crazy. Absolutely cares less for human life.
Yeah.
He just wants his mother.
You definitely have different shades of evil here. And most of them, are actually not that bad in some ways. Like, or their criminality is, Isaac and Miri are thieves, but they don't harm people, and they always want to help and try to
Robin Hood.
be happy. Yeah, and then
You have somebody like Splot, who
Yeah.
has a gang of cast outs that they
Right.
kind of run a drug or a wine or a
They were
whiskey
bootleggers.
kind of whiskey running kind of company.
they do all sorts of criminal activities, and when they get violent, And
Absolutely.
East has an obsession with explosions, but they are really tight knit. They really love each other, and they're really
Absolutely. They're like
close.
a family.
Yes, they are. And you see that in several different areas. Like, most of the different, even the gangsters, for the most part, like Maiza and Firo are adopted siblings for all intents and purposes. You got the Gandor brothers, who are obviously very close, and they're good friends with Firo. There's a lot of, and even their adopted brother, Claire, the one that who eventually becomes the rail tracer. Claire is an evil, sadistic son of a bitch,
Absolutely.
but he has a code of ethics.
He doesn't kill the
does have
innocent.
a code of ethics, and he does respect people who are not evil.
Yeah, he doesn't kill the innocent or the people that are not involved with crime. He just kind of lets them go.
Yeah.
Now, he takes on the persona of the
Rail
Rail
Chaser.
Chaser, which is this
Right.
Jeez.
urban legend of this mass killer that goes on from train to train and just slaughters people.
Yeah, he ends up wearing a mask of blood, basically, as his whole
Yeah.
body gets covered with.
Right. Well, the first few times we see the rail tracer, it looks like a monster. They illustrate it as a monster because that's essentially what people see.
Yeah, because what he was wearing was his conductor suit that got all bloody, soaked bloody to the bone.
And all purpose, for all intents and purposes, he is a monster. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
It's almost like seeing an adult Dick Grayson.
More like Jason Todd.
Personality Jason Todd, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so many variety of characters. This and pretty much every one of the titles I'm going to be going through over these next 2 other months are all great anime that are hard to find.
Okay, well, that's going to be interesting to see what what's going to happen next.
Wait, I thought you were covering Ninja Scroll.
No, we stepped away from Ninja Scroll.
I was going to say that one isn't hard to find.
Lupin film that is not found anywhere.
Really?
That's going to be interesting.
Actually, Golden Time isn't that hard to find either, isn't it? I think Sentai still has it.
No, it's on Freevee. It's on Freevee. It used to be on Crunchyroll, but they moved. It's over on Freevee right now.
Right. Well, Sentai did release it. Did they discontinue it?
Yeah, I was thinking. I thought that this thing has a release on Sentai.
Huh.
Because they've re-released it several times.
Huh.
Let's see. Golden
Time, I think, was only for Sentai.
Yeah, it is currently in print on Sentai on Blu-ray.
I remember seeing it in DVD and Blu-ray.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that next month.
Yeah.
This one, however, is very hard.
A different kettle of fish.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, unless you want to spend, like a couple $100 to get whatever version you can get your hands on.
Actually, for something similar to
episode
this,
3 does remind me a bit of this series.
One thing that this one does have in common with Golden Time is a very unusual start to a relationship. A couple of them, actually, because we have a couple of couples that form during the course of this show.
Yeah.
They are not traditional. What's that?
A couple.
What's that?
Front and East are a couple that were childhood friends.
Yes.
Isaac and Miria, we don't know if they're romantically involved, but they
are a pair regardless.
Yeah, they're a pair.
Yeah. I think there's simply partners in crime that happen to like each other a lot.
What's that?
I think there's simply partners in crime that happen to like each other a lot.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I think they're honestly, the phrase stupid in love fits, because whether they are romantic or not, I think that they probably are just too dumb to even consider going there.
I mean, pretty much a century to remember that they were immortal.
Right.
Yeah, it took them till like 2001 before they realized they were immortal.
It took 70 years. 70 years. That was like, you know what, Miria? I don't think we've aged.
For a while, I used to compare this to Orient Express because that was the one I had. But now I actually have a movie that compares to this near perfectly, and that's Bullet Train.
Bullet Train was a good one.
I almost felt like Bullet Train, the people who wrote that watched this.
They probably did. They probably
like Diesel.
And actually, I was looking at ANN's description. They compared this to the films of Guy Ritchie and Quentin Tarantino, and I felt that way watching Bullet Train. That this felt like someone who had seen a lot of Guy Ritchie and Tarantino.
Yeah.
They definitely are of a stripe. The two I was particularly thinking of, though, and I was talking couples that form in this series, they're not really fully linked, but for all intents and purposes, Ennis and Firo might as well be. And Claire, the first
Firo
time
wanted it from the get-go.
The first time Claire sees Shanae, he goes, "Ooh." And he has the most unusual proposal to her.
Yeah, I mean, after tossing her off the train, she kind of knifes herself back up, and they leaves a love note behind.
That's one of the stories they wrap up in the.
I've never seen that in an anime ever before.
Wasn't exactly a love note, but it was a "come find me, I'll be waiting." And in fact, he actually goes to another person and asks her advice of I don't know if she wants to marry me or kill me. It's like
I think that the rail chaser actually asked another guy kind of politely over the train tracks where to find her.
right,
Yeah.
right.
It's a pretty unique way of taking care of it. So, yeah.
Oh, he wasn't that polite, but but anyway, we're jumping around a lot, but so does the show.
It's like that. It jumps around from here and there.
And
Yeah,
actually,
the series jumps times.
one of the reasons why I was glad I got time to do a rewatch is that honestly, on first viewing, the first few episodes, you can get lost very easily. It's really hard to keep track the first 3 or 4 episodes. You're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Especially because of what's that?
The tying knots in the story are Dallas, the Immortals, and also the Rail Tracer. So they're 3 tying knots.
Right.
They kind of all come together in the Flying Pussyfoot.
There's the mystery of what happened aboard the Flying Pussyfoot. There's the mystery of where the hell is Dallas Genoard, and then there's the whole Immortal plot line. And there are a lot of other plot lines too, but those are probably kind of the key ones. But
basically have a bunch of criminal families that want to get rid of each other or compete each other out of the market. So again, the show has plots within plots. It's a difficult measure to only watch once and say, sure, I understand everything. It's a bunch of nonsense. You got to watch this thing 2 or 3 times just to get an idea what the heck the layers are doing in any period of time.
Right.
And just to have a mob family in an anime, it's so rare. I mean, and to have a mob war. I mean, in America, if you study history, I mean, that was a prominent part of our history from 1910 to 1940
ish.
Well, especially during Prohibition,
right?
Skyrocketed in power. I mean,
right. And actually,
the American outlaw of the West to the mobsters.
So the official era that was Prohibition was 1920 to 1933. So this basically takes place at the tail end of Prohibition. And I do know another wonderful series that takes place during this time period that I was a big fan of was Boardwalk Empire. But definitely in that one, you see very, very explicitly that the mob they were enjoying the power that Prohibition had given them and their allies. And they did not want to let it go. And they had people very high up who were also enjoying this and did not want to let it go. And so a lot of it did start coming to a head toward the end of Prohibition. A lot of things really did get amped up a notch. But it was
at the tail end, you were at the end of Prohibition, start of the Great Depression, before we went into World War II and the 40s. So you got a bit of Americana in there.
Yep.
And it's why I like the English cast in this one, because you get the dialect that it would be prominent in that series in time.
Yeah. And I think this show did do a really good job with the English dub. They not only, for the most part, a couple characters sound very different, but most of them sound very similar from one to the other. They did a really good job of capturing the sound of the characters, the essence of the characters. But yes, giving them this is the rare Japanese series where it does make more sense to listen to it in English.
If I was reading right, Funimation actually had a pool of 115 participants that were competing for the, how many roles, 23, 20, 25 roles, what are 32 roles. And they said that they took the longest of any kind of show they had done up to that time to try to, pare down how many people would play whatever role it was. So it looks like that Funimation did put a lot of effort to make this role, the roles works right in Baccano.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the cast are not the most well-known in Funimation, except for, I think, 3 members. So, I mean, it's... I'm trying to see if I can see the casting here, because I'm trying to see exactly who played what. But yeah, it was a well-diverse cast. Like I said, 32 characters is a lot of cast members in most projects. I mean, it's fitting that it's the same studio that did Durura, because they had a somewhat large cast as well.
Yeah. And that was kind of similar too. I don't know if it was quite as fractured in the timeline, but in terms of skipping back and forth from one plot line to the next, that one also definitely had several overlapping plot lines. But I'm a little curious. You said not well known. I'm looking at this cast. I'm going like, I think this is a pretty well-known cast. We got Brenda Palencia there, Colleen Clinkenbeard, Chad Saxton, Jerry Jewell, Monica Rial.
Monica, Colleen, and he's slipping my mind. The voice of Isaac
is J. Michael Tatum.
J. Michael Tatum are probably the more well-known.
Mm-hmm.
Tatum, of course, plays Sebastian in freaking why is my brain slipping?
Black Butler?
Damn it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing, are you meaning the hell of a butler?
Yeah, one hell of a butler, Sebastian. He also plays the lead role of Spice and Wolf. He plays the lead male role in Spice and Wolf.
Okay. Good deal.
He plays also NL in One Piece.
Mm-hmm.
He's the arrogant voice.
Mm-hmm.
He's very good at those arrogant voice characters. Something about his voice, I guess. And of course, Monica Rial and Clinkenbeard. Clinkenbeard being the English voice of Luffy from One Piece.
Right.
And Rial being Bulma in Dragon Ball.
Okay.
Well, one thing that I found out that Isaac and Miria are indeed a couple. It's just detailed in the light novels.
I can get a hold of the light novels, but I don't know if there's a proper translation available these days.
So canonically, they are a couple. They just didn't. Display it here.
I also read a note that apparently the creator of the series found Firo very, very difficult to write. He thought he was bland, and he saw him as a central character, but and apparently he fixed it in part by having him fall for Ennis. So according to the creator, he definitely has that sort of interest in Ennis. Whether she reciprocates is hard to say, but
Yeah, the first scene tells us, because they literally have the two narrators being like, "Oh, he's your main character."
Yeah.
And it's like, no, he's not.
Well, I mean, they run through some of the suspects, some of the possibilities, and I believe was it Carol? I think was the girl. She, I think, put Isaac and Miria forward initially, but then they go through a few possibles. I do see Anime News Network seems to think Isaac and Miri are the main cast because they're right at the beginning.
Well, technically, one could say that those two are the only characters that are solidly involved from beginning to end, with the exception
every
of
angle.
the like 1700s part. So,
I mean,
yeah.
my
Yeah.
favorite part is when they get hit by the car, go,
Mhm.
oh, we're going to attack the person that got hit us by the car, and then immediately meet and just like, we're friends.
Are you look familiar? This car looks familiar.
And then
Are
turn
you a
around and
pet
wreck
shop
the car
owner?
later.
Yes, exactly. Well, actually, one of my favorite, they have some interesting and weird episode titles, but I think one of them was Isaac and Miria unintentionally spread happiness everywhere. It's like, it is appropriate because they pretty much just go around spreading happiness, which would make, there's one character who's not a big part, but he does show up throughout much of the show, who that's his thing, is trying to make people smile. I don't remember if he ever met them, but he would have loved to.
I'm trying to remember which character that was.
Uh,
There was the ramen. I think that when he became like a police person or inspector.
Elmer, I think, was his name.
Elmer.
Yeah.
Nick.
Yeah, Elmer C. Albatross apparently was the interesting name. So this one does have some interesting names, and I will say, of all of them, Jacuzzi's plot is kind of a stupid name.
Actually, though they don't really have an outright protagonist, because it really is an ensemble show.
Oh yeah,
I would say that there is at least one potential antagonist that seems to be.
Oh yeah,
there's one major one.
old man.
The old man
Zilla
is, in my opinion, probably the
Evil
Rasputin
one.
type character. He is like the major antagonist, in my opinion.
Salazar.
He's not like as upfront as some of the other antagonists are, but he seems to always be the one pulling a lot of the strings behind the scenes from the very beginning, including the 1700 scenes at the beginning.
Yes, I would say
He
he's
wants
definitely the big one. I would also argue Lad Russo could be considered one. And
Lad, definitely.
But he's
One
doing
real
it under
chaser,
orders.
He's
So.
definitely evil.
what's that?
The real chaser is definitely evil.
Well, see, I'd be more inclined to say that the Rail Tracer might or might not be considered one of the main antagonists. He's kind of in the middle. He's an antagonist to some.
Well, it
If
depends
the
if he's in the
Rail
rail tracer mode. He'll eat you, or scrape you across the train tracks.
If the Rail Chaser didn't find out that Cesar, which was the little kid,
Yeah.
that he was immortal, and that he just kept killing him, and I'm figuring he just got bored by a certain point.
I
He found
think
the
he
kid
was actually
amusing,
trying to make him
but he got
scared.
bored with killing.
I think he actually really enjoyed it. They put an impression on the little kid, biting off his fingers, killing, spiking.
I think with him, again, he has his sense of, he has an ethical code. And the kid, he overheard and watched the kid try to get Russo to murder everyone on the train.
Mm-hmm.
The kid tried to use a sadistic sociopath to be his tool of mass murder. And I think that the Rail Tracer, or Vino, or Claire, whatever we want to call him, I think he just said this kid needs to be taught a lesson. And so that was just his way of going about it. He was a little bit sadistic, but I think it was more of, he's like, this kid deserves a wake-up call.
Well, and plus, he's not really a kid. If you think about it.
My God!
The other one that I would argue,
sense
What's up?
Oh,
Honor.
the kid
Honor
only went through
the doctor
several,
that
like,
died.
a period of time of being poked in the eyes with a hot poker, stripped of his flesh, pierced, crushed, and every kind burnt alive. And this kid was completely traumatized by the real trade.
Yeah. This kid's not a kid, though. I mean, in reality, this kid is
like 200
much
years
older than any of the characters on that train.
Yeah, he's like 210, you know. The other one,
apparently one of the immortals does show up in Dorora.
Oh, really? Which one?
Nile.
Okay.
The one that initially had no fear of death.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I'd forgotten that's
ironically,
a character.
Next month we'll have another anime that falls into Golden Age.
Yeah.
Or Golden Time.
That's a character who we don't see much of. Several of the characters on the ship we know we won't see again because Zillard straight says, I killed 13 of your friends. I think that was the number. But and we come to find out Ches killed the one he was living with. There were a couple there, but I do want to mention real quick, I think there's another antagonist in the series because there is one character that you can count literally on one hand the number of people in the series who don't despise him, who know of him. You could definitely argue Dallas is an antagonist in this series because his sister loves him and he has his 3 toadies and everyone else hates his freaking guts. And
he's the arrogant asshole.
Yes, he is.
Thinks he's all big.
Yeah.
Well, if you said that Dallas is a bad guy, then the other, I forget his name, the brute gangster hitman. I can't remember. There was a guy that was literally was a hatchet man, and what he did, he found people, got rid of them. It was loud, boisterous. I forget his name, but
see, that's the thing, though. He's forgettable. He is just, as you said, a hatchet man. He does move the plot around a bit, but at the end of the day, he's not a major character. What was his name? What was
which one?
The guy that he's talking about who worked for the Runaradas. What was his name?
I'm just trying. I keep scrolling up and down on this list.
He was the one who actually killed even Dallas's father and brother. What was his name? It was
would it be one of the Grandeur?
No, it wasn't one of the Gandors. It was because again, the Gandor, it was the guy who went off on his own and eventually Old Man Runarada just Don Bartolo Runarada was his name. He ended up killing the guy to prove to Eve that he had no beef with her family.
I don't have them even listed. Damn. They're not even listed in the third 32 here.
Let's see here. I'm trying to figure out. Oh, well, whatever.
I mean, one of the things I was going to say, though, is basically, I loved the way they got rid of Dallas for, about a year and a half?
Yeah.
They basically put him in drum, put a bunch of like concrete, and they threw him over in the sea.
Yep. They gave him a concrete bath, I believe, is the phrase there.
They're immortal, so they're not going to die. But
and they did give him cards so he wouldn't get bored.
Yeah, they gave him cards.
Yeah.
In the cement.
Yes. But I feel like he was Gustavo. I could be remembering that wrong, but I think he was Gustavo.
There's so many characters. I forget. I just forgot his name. I just know he was a big brute, very loud, and he was a hitman, hatchet man kind of a character.
Yeah. he was sort of the what's the guy in The Godfather? I think his name was it Lucha Brati? Lucha Brati, I think was his name, who was like Don Corleone's right hand. He wasn't that bright, but he did what was requested of him. This guy was kind of like him, but a little more of a loose cannon. Unfortunately, he had the unfortunate habit of trying to think on his own from time to time.
Well, it's not Gustav. I'll tell you right now, it's not Gustav. Gustav and Carol are narrators.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah. I know she called him the vice president. I couldn't remember what his actual name was. No, there's a Gustav, and then there's a Gustavo.
I don't see Gustavo listed.
I'm looking at the ANN cast listing here. Anyway,
Yeah.
good times. There's a lot of people. Let's put.
Oh yeah, and don't forget we got the information broker group.
Yes,
they actually had a girl on the flying pussyfoot that could scale on the bottom of the train and do all kinds of crazy martial arts stuff.
Right,
Yeah.
Rachel.
Ironically, she's not in her military gear, but it's the redhead in the picture.
What's that?
It's the redhead in the picture. Is the
No, that's
girl,
Ennis is the redhead.
No, that's the what's that?
Dennis. Never mind.
Yeah.
That's the talk about the girl in the green.
Rachel. Yeah.
Rachel. Yeah.
She
is
is
information brokers trying to find information at the same time as all the crimes going on. I mean, there's so much stuff going on. There's no end to it.
Right.
Overall, it sounds like we're spoiling a lot, but we're actually not.
Plus, we always spoil stuff if you watch these. So
yeah.
And this is such a web of plot that you'd have to sit there and be like, okay, this character did this in episode, here.
Yeah.
That reacted to this character. And it's like, you pretty much need the Always Sunny Charlie board of conspiracy.
And I have to admit, like, reluctantly somewhat, because I felt a little bit silly once I realized it. And then on second watch, I'm like, how? I'm going to be honest. I thought the mystery of Dallas was much more of a mystery the first time around. I did not connect in my brain. The show is so fractured and so frenetic and so weird in the way it's put together that I did not connect this prick with the guy that his sister was looking for.
Absolutely.
I did not. What's that?
She's a saint, and the guy's a sinner.
Yeah.
Serious. The guy's a total freaking asshole.
Yeah, I did not realize that was Dallas until several episodes in. And then I was like, oh, shit, that's really... She wants to find this guy?
The one interaction you see between the two of them.
Yeah.
Just like in the Rail Tracer, when you first meet him, he's an all right guy in the front. Taking care of the train track. Driving the train until he gets threatened, and then he becomes the Rail Tracer. My God.
Yeah. Well, and we even get a little bit of a red herring, and I don't know. I mean, well, again, people watch this; they know there's going to be spoilers. We get a red herring where our young conductor seems to be murdered in cold blood. But
that was such a badass season.
Yeah, see, that particular scene could completely turn around on its head quickly.
Right.
I kind of like it how they first show the gun pulled up by the older conductor. Mm-hmm. So I'm some sort of crazy fanatic like he was. And then a few moments later, you saw the whole tide was turned. And so, oh no, this is not going to be going good for you. He literally kicks the gun out of the guy's hands.
Mm-hmm.
It is important that people understand this series is bloody, and I mean detailed bloody.
It's not as graphic as I was led to believe, which is good. It's not Ninja Scroll graphic, but it is bloody as shit.
Oh my god! You only see crushed bodies. You see the grinding of the people's faces on the train tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Severing of
it's not like
fingers,
System North
limbs.
Star, but man, there's plenty of gore go around for everybody to have fun with.
Mm-hmm. And one thing that is also kind of good, worth mentioning, that's interesting, is that we have a whole bunch of the immortals. That's like their actual. There are people that do. There is a supernatural element. We have people who don't die and who actually come back from really bloody, gruesome deaths. Usually just takes a few minutes. Sometimes it's quicker than that. Small injuries heal almost immediately. They have the ability to devour each other, D style, by putting their hand on their head and saying, I am hungry, basically, I wish to devour you. Or, contrary-wise, to share knowledge, kind of like I imagine like they, like Supergirl depicts the Martian ability to share experiences and whatever. And of course, if you devour someone, you devour all their experience, all their knowledge, everything. But on top of that, these people who are not immortals, quite a few of them are borderline superhuman too. I mean, Claire was in the circus and has trained his body to
perfection,
love Batman levels of physical perfection. We've got people like
freaking Maniac as well.
We've got Lad and
another psychopath,
and what was his name? Graham, one of his disciples, are beyond the pale of what would normally be considered possible for humans. We've got
the black-haired girl. I forget her name. That could climb the sides of a.
Shanae is a very, very, very. Well, I was going to get to her.
Immortal, though.
Shanae is like more normal, but still extraordinarily athletic and talented. Rachel is able, just like Claire, both of them are able to move on a train in a way that humans are not usually able to move on a moving train. And quite a few other characters have the ability to at least stand on the roof without problems. Jacuzzi has the ability to essentially turn tears into adrenaline, and essentially and also seems to have a superhuman ability to inspire rabid devotion from his friends. And then you could almost argue Isaac and Miria's idiocy is a superpower.
No. Their ability to disguise themselves and never get caught.
Yeah.
But
they even pose for pictures.
If there ever was characters that would literally find trouble, are the Isaac and the other girl, Miriam.
Right. But yeah, it's just I just find it really amusing. I'm sitting there going like,
yeah. Then it's the crazy bomber girl.
Yeah.
So that hide the bomb in her skull.
Yeah.
You see the firebomb.
Eye patch here.
You have some people here who have we'll call them hobbies that are very, 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 very passionately held hobbies. Niece, her hobby is explosions. Like, she is the Michael Bay of this series. As we said before, Lad's is carnage, and he has a particular fetish. It's a full-on fetish for killing people who think they're not about to die.
Yeah.
And then Graham has a full-on fetish for destroying and dismantling stuff, bars and whatever. I mean, some of these people just...
Man, Graham has turned out to be one of the more psychological or philosophical person, the whole group, going on and on about nonsense, so that we could actually talk and communicate with this gang of people with the giant wrench.
Yeah. And there is a lot of philosophy in this. You get a lot of it from Graham, but also from, again, the two newspaper folk who start and end the series. A little bit from the other people in the Daily Days. And then, of course, you get Isaac and Mary as philosophizing, which is a little different.
What was the one I brought up in chat that was Isaac?
What?
Oh, it's Billy the Kid being in like a journey to the east.
Oh, like the Three Tales or whatever it was.
Yeah, the Romance of Three Kingdoms.
Yeah.
He puts Billy and the Kid in it.
Yeah. And then again, one of my favorite parts is where they are deciding they're going to rob someone with a lot of money. So we see Eve kind of crying over the picture of her brother who's gone missing. And then she hears talking outside the window, and they're out there debating, well, she's crying. We shouldn't really bother her and all this stuff. And then she ends up coming and talking to, how did you know? Well, I could hear you talking. but they end up being like her. I think this was in that episode, Isaac and Mary Unintentionally Spread Happiness, I think. But they end up basically being a sounding board, sort of psychiatrist for her. They come to realize that Dallas has an obsession with money. He equates money to power. Eve is upset with his obsession with money. And then the light bulb goes off and they go, if he didn't have any money, there would not be any problem. You guys would get along beautifully because there would be no cause of friction. Hold on a second. And they end up going and robbing the house blind to help even Dallas's relationship. They take all the money away so that money won't be a problem. And of course, Eve appreciates the gesture, but Dallas does not. Yeah.
I mean, that was the one moment we get with Dallas and Eve. And he's nice to his sister until he realizes there's no money. And then he gets pissy.
Yeah. Exactly. He said, I came home to see what the old man left, and it's gone. Yeah. Yeah, that dude is a shit. I gotta say, as sadistic and evil as Ladd is, Ladd amused me with his, he's like part Joker, part Hisoka, just all, but he was fun to watch. Dallas is the one character that I have almost never had fun when he was on screen, except when he was getting his, which was nice.
Fiore gave him a nice beating.
Yeah.
So, pretty stylish beating, too.
Yeah.
That's about the only thing that Fiore did.
What's that?
That beating was about the only thing that Fiore really did, besides buy the suit and hat and meet Ennis.
Well, his becoming capo for the Marzotti, whatever. Marlotti. That was a big plot point. And of course, he was the one who ended up disposing of Zillard and saving Ennis. So, there was that. And I'll admit, Heroes, he isn't that, of all the characters, he is one of the more thinly written characters. But
Martillo family. Sorry.
Martillo, yeah. Martillo. But yeah, in a show like this, though, as wild and colorful as the cast are, some of them are going to seem bland by comparison. I mean, that's just...
Oh, yeah.
They can't all be on the same level. I mean, again, it's like with Dura, you have that central trio of high schoolers where the one kid is ostensibly the central character, and he's probably the most boring character in the whole series. You know?
Yeah, but
That's
when people think of Dura, they think of Selfie.
That's it. That's what I mean. They think of Kelty. They think of Isaiah. They think of I can't remember the bartender offhand, but you know,
Isaiah.
they think of Simon. Simon is awesome. The Russian sushi. You know, they think of that. They don't. That main kid, the guy who's at the center of it all, is one of the least interesting characters, and that's one thing the two shows do kind of have in common.
But
Unfortunately, but
when you write a story, you don't need a main character to be the
right,
popular character.
right,
You just need them to push the story.
right.
And in Dura, they do that. Fiore doesn't really push the story. He's kind of like the end note to the story.
Well, and actually, that was one thing that, again, I read some comments from the creator of the series, and he did say that the character was difficult for him because he felt like he was having trouble writing him into the main mechanism of the plot. You know, it's like, and I get that. Like, you know, it's kind of, you know, and it's weird because even though technically Misa, his best pal slash, I guess, sort of benefactor, Misa has been central to the story almost from the beginning. But
Mice is the immortal with the knowledge.
Well, he is the one who summoned the demon in the first place. Yeah. And he was the one gifted with all the knowledge. He shared it with his brother, and Zillard greedily destroyed his brother and took the knowledge for himself. And so the two of them have been bitter foes for 200 years. But Misa himself doesn't do a whole lot in the series. He's there. He's very important to the plot, but he doesn't really do a whole lot. He's just kind of there in much of the story. Yeah. And
anybody got anything they want to cover that we haven't covered already?
Well, I think I could be wrong, but my impression was there were two groups of immortals. You had the immortals that were created from the demon's chalice.
Right.
You had the created immortals, but I was understanding that the ones that followed, you know, the later on, they would eventually die.
Well,
the immortals wouldn't die, but the ones that were artificially created, I guess, and you know, because they
the faulty
yes,
potion.
Yes and no.
Potions.
Yeah, because they basically, and like I said before, Zillard got half the knowledge by killing Misa's brother, but he couldn't have all the knowledge. He had a whole group of people with him that had been given an imperfect formula based on the knowledge he had, and that was what was given to Dallas and his friends. So that group of immortals was immortal, but one of them did manage to perfect the formula right as the 1930s plotline was coming into play.
Yeah. In time for the two idiots to drink it.
Yes. Well, that was the two bottles that were stolen by Dallas, were re-stolen by Isaac and Miria, were shared as party favors at Firo's capo ceremony. So the entire Isaac and Miria, but also the entire Martillo family and the Gondors, who happened to be guests of honor, all got the newly perfected. So they were all true immortals, but not through the original thing. That was my.
We still see some of the immortals.
What's that?
We also see the devil.
Yeah,
more.
Yeah.
So.
Because Elmer fell overboard at the same time Zillard did, and he made a wish to the devil as he was dying. in return for being saved, the devil would watch over Misa. And yeah. And that was a character that really does fade into the background for most of the story. You only see him a few times. And I didn't even notice him as a separate character until that last episode. I was like,
I mean,
oh.
I didn't
There was
recognize
something about
Sylvie.
that. I thought that the smiling man was the demon. Because I could have sworn that he came, that they were two different people or something like that. I think he got flipped overboard on the ship, and then he made a wish to whatever disembodied voice it was, and then he suddenly rematerializes at the end of the show. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on the show. You probably need to watch it 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times.
What name they gave the demon?
I don't think they did. I think they just called him Devil. Oh no, he did.
No, he had a name in the very end.
He did go by a name. Yeah, what was it?
I did like the twist with what the guy had asked of the demon, and that was a rather cool twist at the end. I didn't catch that until the end the first time.
Where he just wanted him to smile, or
where the demon actually was actually one of the characters watching over them the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
kind of fun. List.
And we also saw one of the other survivors of the ship shows up right at the end. We'd only seen very brief snippets of
Sylvie.
She didn't Sylvie, yes.
Drink the potion until years later. She actually held off on drinking.
Yeah. She had been Misa's brother Greto and her were very, very close, and she was really upset when he was killed. And Zillard tried to kill her, but she hadn't drunk yet, and that did not go well for him.
No.
That's where he learned what happened when you try to devour someone who's not immortal. It was not pleasant for him for a bit. But I guess a couple other characters to mention. Of course, you've got Senator Barium. His wife and daughter were on the train, so they're kind of in the mix. And then one of the other survivors of the ship was Shanae's father, Hugo, who there's a whole faction on the train that she's traveling with who think somehow by slaughtering the populace of the train, somehow they'll win Hugo's freedom and favor or something and become immortal as a result.
Shanae's story was a mess.
Yeah. But they did not think that one through, I think.
No.
Then there was that silver-haired young girl that survived, and she don't pop up until the very last episode.
Yeah.
For like a brief couple of minutes, and that's about it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that was Sylvie.
Actually, we did get a little bit of backstory on Hugo and Shanae's relationship. But again, she's his daughter, and he is a piece of work too. He is I guess you could say the essential. He takes like being an observer
to the extreme.
Basically.
He's like the mastermind pulling the strings and to see what's going to happen. Oh man, there's hardly anybody in here that's angel-like. Everybody has something guilty about them.
Right.
But tell you what, one thing I kind of thought about the show that they actually had some excellent fighting scenes.
Oh yeah.
Like the fight between Lad and the Rail Tracer, for instance.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you do have that rooftop encounter between Lad, Shanae, and the Rail Tracer. That's an interesting encounter there. I mean, it's Lad and Shanae, and then the Rail Tracer shows up. and throws a wrench into it of sorts.
You could say that again. I thought, oh, this could be a really good fight. And of
And
course,
then speaking of, you got the later on, you got the confrontation between Graham and Shanae, and then Claire gets involved in that one, and that was a interesting little bit.
Yes, I was thinking Mort and Miria both also appear in Darara. So.
Oh, do they?
Yes.
I've forgotten about that. Okay.
I'm gonna have to watch the whole series.
Yeah.
I actually do own it all on physical.
Did all of it
As
get
we
released here? I thought
Because
Next month,
times 2 and
we're gonna
times
have
3
another-
were released as times 2 in the US.
because I'm pretty sure there was more that didn't, but I don't know. I don't know for sure. I need to rewatch it myself.
next month with Golden Time, there is a connection with another anime. So,
Okay.
although it's a bit more obvious, I will say.
I feel like I remember that, but also don't remember it.
You'll see the character and be like, oh.
Okay. Well, that's fun to know. Yeah.
But yeah, I think we pretty much covered the basis of this whole thing. The plot is just a mess. Like I said, you need a board to kind of follow where everybody connects.
Well,
It's kinda hard
rewatching
to-
also does help.
So, how was that, Jacob?
I said rewatching does help. Like
Yes.
if you go back and rewatch it, you'll pieces will fall into place and go, oh.
But let's go ahead and move on, I guess. We talked about the voice acting, so we don't really need to talk about that. Let's talk about the music.
oh yeah. I
Oh
tell
yeah.
you what, this is one of the few shows which I really enjoyed the music. Most of the time, I can care less.
Is this a show where you actually watched the opener?
Yes, I did. Watched
All
the
right.
opener, the music in between. I like the fight scene music particularly well. I like that one the most of all. But I do like the opening, which I watched multiple times. The ending I watched multiple times, and I did enjoy the fight scene music or the kind of that music pops up in throughout the series. So this is one of the few animes which I actually will watch the beginning and the end.
Hmm.
The ending credits.
Very appropriate
This is-
music, too, for the timeline.
And the show does. Again, it's worth noting the opener. It does a Guy Ritchie style zoom in and freeze frame for each character, which is the same thing Dura did, and it does also the way Dura did. It uses the latter part of the opener to give a brief recap of the pertinent previous episodes. So it's kind of an
It's a
interesting
good
way.
reason, too.
What's
Hey,
that?
you know that,
Dora is
in
by
the
the same
beginning
artist.
in the beginning of the opening theme, they have that quarter that's flipped. That's a American. It's a Walking Liberty quarter. That's
Okay.
actually is one of those.
But of course the opening theme is Guns N' Roses by Paradise Lunch. I absolutely love that song. It's a music theme. There's some speaking, but it's a musical theme. But it's just awesome.
No, the Guns N' Roses, no speaking. It's just jazz.
Well, there is some speech, but it's very mild, and I can't make out what they say. It's just kind of background almost.
It's jazz. It's
yeah.
very appropriate for the timeline.
Yes, it is. And overall, yeah, I'll admit the music throughout is great. One thing I will say, weird for me to call out an anime for, I really like the end theme is Calling by Kari Oda. It breaks somewhat from that jazz theme. It's a more traditional anime theme.
Mm-hmm.
I like the ender, but I think weird. Apparently, the actual final episode ended with a over the title credits ending with the characters, but the coda, the recap, ended with that theme, and I'm like, I feel like they could have ended the coda better. I didn't think that theme was a good way to end the whole series. But overall, it's a great way to end the individual episodes. But I thought,
like I was saying though during that, this is from the same creator of Darura,
right?
So it's appropriate the characters show in there.
Okay.
So the writer of this would later do Darura, a couple other series. Let's see, Vamp with an exclamation mark. Hariyama-san. And this is the odd standout. Bleach spirits are forever with you. So Bleach connection there.
Interesting.
Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, oddly enough, that is one where the opening was one I skipped about midway through.
No, how could you? My God,
Blasphemy.
It's weird. I don't know. It felt generic to me. That trumpet refrain and all that stuff. I don't know. It just felt generic to me. But that's. But sometimes that's just how it is. Sometimes a piece does feel like that. It's not like Tank, like at Cowboy Bebop, where I feel like it's one of the best instrumentals that I've seen in an anime opening.
It's not as good as Tank. I will grant you that. Tank is.
Well, I was actually ready to talk about Tank, but you're right. It's one of the few openings which I will watch every single time.
It's in my top 30. I know we have a list of top 20 and we've never gotten to.
Nope.
Yeah, one day. Yeah.
This is just barely out of the top 30. And I may change it. I may add it to the list. But it is one of the better openings of anime, in my opinion.
Right. Although, again, it is interesting the characters they choose to introduce and the ones they don't. Because, like, some of the characters, we already mentioned Lua Klein, who is Russo's bride to be,
Future murder victim.
Right, exactly. And then the Gandors, Luck Gandor is a major character in the series, but one could argue that Keith and even Burga is, especially Burga Gandor, is almost a background character.
Oh yeah, that's a little background.
But all three of them get a full introduction. We see
in the light novel, they may be bigger players. I mean, that's the key thing.
We see Claire front and center in the opener, but he's not introduced. The guy who was the bartender on the train is shown in the opener, but he's not introduced. I think, did we see Donnie and Nick in the opener?
No, you don't see Donnie or Nick.
But they're not. They're actually really big characters.
Well, Donnie, of course.
And none of the information brokers are in that opener, and they're a big part of the cast. So, and then so it's interesting the ones they chose to include, but it's still in a way that's part of this slippery, misdirecting nature of the series, and I kind of love it. Yeah.
I mean, the series continuously is developed to keep you on your toes,
right,
and reverse ideas throughout it. Animation. Honestly, this was it Aniplex?
This is actually was made by Brains Base.
Brains Base. Okay.
It was put out. It was of course it was put out by Aniplex. So I'll tell you what. I think the other one I remember from Brain Space, I think it was like brain powered. Maybe that. What was that letter carrying anime called again? But
Princess Jellyfish as well. So that's a different style at the same time. It's very beautiful. anime to watch. Trying to see some of the other ones that they mainly did recently that are notable. Kiss Him, Not Me, they did.
You talking about those production
Homecoming season
company
4.
Let's see if I look at anything bigger than this. I'm looking at the list right now. Baccano's pretty big. Natsune's Book of Friends.
Yeah, I just saw that one.
That's
Yeah.
a really good one. Spice and Wolf, pretty good. Draw, Princess Jellyfish, yeah. Let me see what else. Penguin Drum, that's a big deal.
Yeah, that is.
That's a big deal.
And actually, come to think of it,
And my teen romantic comedy Snafu is really well done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I want to say, and let me make sure. No, never mind.
Grim's
They're doing the current one, the Archdeacon Dilemma. How to
Dear
Love
Eternity is really good.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're definitely the company that put out some good stuff. It's kind of like a sandwich between stuff that that nobody ever heard before. Yeah, Chemistry is pretty good.
Well, not to mention they involved in a lot of other stuff. Second unit animation, in between animation. There's a lot of fun stuff on this list.
That reminds me of Zybeck.
Well, actually, I don't know if no, that was just first episode. Huh. Well, one of the interesting ones on here, another jazz connection. Apparently, they did the. Oh, that was just the Finnish animation. Never mind. But still, Kids on the Slope, they were involved in another jazz-drenched series.
They did KG. They did Assassination Classroom.
Oh, okay.
Which, love the series.
Classroom is a pretty big deal, though. And Snafu is really big deal.
Yeah.
And, of course, Baccano is a really big deal.
They're a talented group.
Yeah.
To sum it up. They're
Although...
Yes.
One lesser series on this list. It looked good, but Akikan was definitely a lesser series.
Fun series.
Interesting concept, though.
They also did Anilog, which is really good. It's kind of a minor series about his sister that has a brother fetish.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of it would be kind of sad to see, but they did the Denpa Teki New Kanojo was a pretty darn big deal anime. It's about a girl that thinks she's a reincarnated guard of a high school delinquent. It's a pretty damn good anime. I wish they would bring it over to America. Denpa Teki Kanojo.
Okay, well,
there's hope for us after all for getting something interesting.
Okay.
But yeah, animation-wise, style-wise, this is pretty much a standard animation of high quality in 2000. Well, 2000s, the early 2000s, the aughts. So I mean, this is the kind of quality where digitals become more frequent. You get to the widescreen, they use it, and they give a unique look to each character, which is important in this series.
Yeah. A few of the characters look a little too much alike. To be honest, at first, I had trouble with the leader of the black suits, I guess you could call them, on the train.
Oh, it's a piece of shit.
I felt like their leader looked a lot like Keith Gandor, and it was kind of confusing for me at first. And there were a couple of others that looked a lot alike too. The second time around, it was like, okay, it's not as big of a... I get it a little better. But that was one of the things that confused me at first, was like, are the Gandors on the train? What?
And we did establish the choreography. They had to have somebody in there, showing them how this scene would be set up.
Yeah.
This is beautiful choreography and fight scenes. I mean, this is the stuff you would see in a well-produced kung fu movie from Hollywood.
And also, I was going to say, in terms of the visuals overall, the backgrounds, but like the settings, the costuming, they did a pretty decent job of making it look like 1930s Chicago / New York. Like they did a pretty decent job of making it believable as an American set show. So that was pretty.
We weren't getting like wide shots of the city that much, which is
right.
kind of a downer. I mean, it's not too hard to find photos of New York 1930s.
Right.
Chicago, a little harder, but I'm sure you can find them.
Of course, only a few scenes took place in Chicago, so that wasn't as big of a deal.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, I mean, there are several in California.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, where Isaac and Miria decide to steal gold from the earth.
Yes.
It's like, in a sense, it really is what mining is. Mining is robbing the earth. But they got it in their brain that it's never been done before because no one ever really calls it that. And I just thought it was kind of hilarious that they thought that they were breaking new ground, as it were, by stealing from the earth. And of course, they were terrible at it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
went a whole year without finding anything.
right.
But, yeah. Is there any other point that anybody else wants to add in the production?
No. I mean, you can definitely tell it's not the most current show, but I think overall it looks really good. You know?
Yeah.
I'd like to see it on Blu-ray one of these days. Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe Anticlimax will release a new set
Who
for
knows?
$5,000.
Oh,
Yeah, that's too much.
Sadly, I am tempted. I'm coming into some money in literally a few weeks. I am tempted to pay a high price to get this series in physical form.
It can be gotten for around $150, maybe a little less, but it's not cheap. Yeah.
But it's worth it. It's honestly worth it.
Yeah.
And because this is one of those shows that's like, this is one that you want for a physical collection.
Right.
Because we're losing it. We're honestly, I mean, we went to a site that had this pirated. I mean, that's the only way to watch it right now if you're a streamer. That's the only way.
Well,
last notes.
A series like this is one of those reasons why for physical media existing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I don't want to say favorite scene. Let's choose favorite character that is not Isaac or Miria, because I know those would be number one choice for everybody.
One of the easier ones.
So we take out the popular ones. Everybody would vote for Isaac and Miria. I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So, second favorite characters. And tell us about yourself. We'll start with Brandon.
What was the name of that guy? The one that killed all the people was married. God, I can't think of him.
The one that killed all the people?
Got the one in the back, the back right.
Russo? Lad Russo?
Yeah, Lad. Yeah, he's probably my favorite after them. I don't know why, but it's just the way that he does it, and he does it with a smile on his face. He's such a fun individual.
Okay.
Jacob?
I'm.
It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, it is kind of hard. Because there are several that I like, and sometimes how I like them shifts throughout the series. Like one I'll mention just because of that is I started off annoyed as hell by Jacuzzi, and I still think he has a dumbass name. But by the end of the series, I'd come to like him quite a bit. But another character where what you think of them shifts throughout the series. Probably my favorite besides Isaac and Miria. I'm probably going to go with the Rail Tracer, Claire. I think he's a fascinating character, and he is quite interesting in his own way.
Psycho Killer.
Yes.
Roger?
Psycho Killer.
Well, I'm going to go against the grain. What everybody thinks should be the most interesting character. I'm definitely going to go with the Rail Chaser as my favorite overall character. I have not seen somebody that could do so many interesting things with people's bodies and blood and gore and making kids scream in the dark. It's like a boogeyman, boogeyman's boogeyman. He's always there, to kind of hinting that what did I did to your mother, and stuff like that. So easily, he's my favorite. There's a number of good characters like Lad, the other Isaac couple, and they're all right. But this dude, man, I wish almost from the beginning, this guy would really got my attention. My favorite scene is definitely the number one to me would be the on top of the railroad fight scene between Lad and the rail tracer and the girl. Quite easily the most interesting fight. I've watched actually rewound and watched it 3 or 4 or 5 times.
Oh, I love it at the end of that fight where Lad ends up being taken down by that male hook at the end, which you find out doesn't really kill him by those last 3 episodes.
Yeah.
But,
so you do find out that Lad, Lad sacrifices his arm for his loved one.
Yeah.
Which does provoke an interesting fight between him and the wrench guy, which is also fun.
Oh, that's a good fight too. I thought it was really interesting watching the guy spout, wrench guy just spouting, or his name is Graham, about whatever psychological stuff they had problems with, and suddenly decided to toss his wrench at the rail chaser, just for the hell of it, see what would happen.
Right. And I think that, if we're trying to be fair, because almost all the scenes with Isaac and Miri are gold, and probably the best of them all is when in 2001.
So what? We're still alive.
What, Isaac? I think we haven't aged. Well, and also I like that they were stealing cell phones to save the children, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
it saved everybody from radiation.
Yes, exactly. And also to make sure, because people were like, the family unit was collapsing and all that stuff, and they were still dressed like they were from the 70s, and it just did. Yeah, it was great. But like, other than that, if I were doing favorite scenes, I would be tempted to say that scene at the end with Graham versus Shanae, where Jacuzzi shows up and then all his posse shows up, and they're all like, we came individually. I walked here, and then one pipe, I walked here, and I walked here, and they all walked there on their own, so they didn't break the rules. And then, of course, Claire shows up, and he, that was a fun scene overall, and I enjoyed it a lot. So I'd probably put that up. Plus, seeing Zillard and Dallas get what was coming to them, that was great too.
Oh yeah.
Seeing them.
Roger or Brandon, did you guys have favorite scenes?
I actually really was into the scene when, what was it, Balthazar or whatever his name was, finally got his at the end, because that old man was he was
Salazar.
Salazar, yeah. Close.
Yeah.
Willard Quates. Yes.
But he was starting to get on my nerves throughout it.
Oh
Yeah, he needs to die already.
yeah.
So I was actually, I thought it was pretty cool there, and how they managed to take him out at the end, which was, like I said, it was a pretty cool scene there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's where
I
Firo.
heard, do you have a favorite scene? I guess no. My favorite character and my favorite scene are probably hand in hand because it's where I like them. That is not Marianne Isaac, of course. It's Firo. Firo kicking the ass of Dallas is my favorite scene because it is such a wonderfully choreographed fight with humor and style, and it's just like, ooh.
Mm-hmm.
But that pretty much covers the series. Do we want to do outros?
Does anybody have anything that they want to plug?
Yeah, if you find a good deal on Baccano, buy it.
Yes. Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
I mean,
That's my word to the wise.
I would say vote for the Versus Awards, but that's closed. So
But
we're collecting. I've actually completed. I found out already from YouTube that even using 2 to 3 second clips of the movies is going to get me copyrighted. So
Of course.
I am back to using posters again for the for those, but I've already contacted and I've got an agreement for everybody that will be doing presentations this year. So I'm right now waiting on those, and those I've gotten, I've been editing, and I'm getting them in a slow, steady stream, which is good because I'm hoping to, by the end of the month, get that. Then Jake and I will be filming the awards ceremony ourselves in pieces over that next month, so that we'll debut it at the end of the month.
all right.
But how about you, Brittany? Did you have anything going on you wanted to plug?
Both my comics of Witchin' and Demon Blade are out and going. And we just dropped a Witchin' music video. It's gotten pretty popular since it dropped on Friday. And we're doing a lot of Drivel Draw and Dining Room Doodles returns this weekend, where we do requested art. We kind of changed in the rules a bit, where it's going to be a roll chart for randomized situation.
Mm-hmm.
But should be interesting. Currently, any games are on hold until we upgrade our system, though. So, but yeah. Anything Roger-wise that you want to promote that's coming down the line?
I must admit, I don't understand the question.
You want to push anything, promote anything?
Oh, understand. Oh, yeah. Well, I do like if everybody has a interest in if you like collecting anime or manga or art books or stuff like that from Japan or somewhere around that area. I do run a nice Facebook group called Animazing Collection and Company. Basically, a small Facebook group that specializes in wide array of large scale, collecting of different sorts of stuff from Japan. Of course, we have some expansions we did into a little bit into other Asian type countries. So, if you're interested in a group that's not going to be crazy, super negative, or full of spite and anger and fury at each other, and just one place where you can hang out and relax, definitely Animazing is for you. I happen to run it, and I really enjoyed it. This is going to be my 5th year running the group.
And it's managed to do something that's very rare for Facebook. It is a Facebook page that this close to a presidential election has been free of politics.
Yep, we frown on politics. So no matter what, if you're whatever spectrum you come from, you are invited. If you're a major anime buff, a crazy manga dude, or a lady, or anybody like that, or into figures, It doesn't matter what you believe in. If you're into it, you're invited.
All right. Well,
Amazing.
Go ahead, Brian.
well, thank y'all for coming and watching this discussion on Baccano. Of course, next month, as you probably have heard throughout this, we're covering Golden Time, which will be fun. I think everybody here has a copy of Golden Time to watch or has the ability. It might be on High Dive as far as streaming.
No, it's not on High Dive. It's
Wow.
Freebie and Prime. Because I looked on High Dive. It's not on High Dive.
Huh.
And it's and for those of you who want to watch along, it is available on Sentai for sale on Blu-ray.
Okay.
And definitely a change up from this. Because
Yeah.
it's comedy, but it's romance.
Slightly different.
Identical series in every way.
Not as bloody. I promise.
Not quite.
But of course, for those of you who want more of SeptumSin versus the World, Thursday we're going to be finishing up our Disney collection videos. And boy howdy, there were a lot of those. So part 7, matter of fact, debuts tomorrow. So y'all have fun, and we'll see you on the next one.
All right. Night.
All right. Right all.
Good night.